Hello and welcome back to the TorontoWebsiteDeveloper.com. I am Peter Worski, the Toronto Website Developer, and in this video tutorial, I want to walk you through a screen scraper that I created to grab all of the open links from Hacktivity, from HackerOne/Hacktivity, where there were some publicly disclosed vulnerabilities that I was using to write my book, How to Become a White Hat Hacker, over 30 examples to get you started. Essentially, in the book, I wanted to detail all of some vulnerabilities I could find and provide them in plain language and explain to readers how the vulnerabilities can be found and how you can go ahead and start making money white hat hacking. And in order to do that, I was using hackerone.com/hacktivity. Here, you can find a list of a whole bunch of bounties that have been paid by websites to white hat hackers who have gone and found vulnerabilities and reported those vulnerabilities to them. But as you scroll through the list, you'll see a lot of these vulnerabilities aren't actually publicly disclosed. Companies aren't telling you what was found. Whereas others are. So a lot of times when Shopify is notified, they will go ahead and they will publicly disclose what the vulnerability was for you to be able to read about it. And I was interested in that, and I wanted to grab all of those, but you'll see there's about 150 publicly disclosed vulnerabilities on HackerOne, but they're few and far between all of these private vulnerabilities, so it was really hard for me to find these. So I thought I'd write a script to walk through all of these, see if I could find a link. If I could, write it down, and then I could go and actually read those and use them for my book. So I'm going to show you how I did that so that you can create your own screen scraper for different things, but with the caveat that you need to be polite to other sites, and you'll see how we do that within our script. While I've got you on the page, one thing I'm going to note is as my code walks through this page, it's going to look to see if I have a next page to go to. So we're going to come back to this idea of this next button and the URL associated with that as we're writing our code. So in order to do that, let's head over to our editor. You'll notice, different from all my other video tutorials, I'm actually using my virtual machine, which is a Ubuntu machine, to do this, and that's because I do all of my Rails and Ruby development on a Ubuntu machine. I find it easier. I would prefer to do all my development here, but I don't know, it's easier to do recordings on WAMP. Anyways, that's beside the point. You'll see I've got this new scraper file, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work on it with you. So first thing we need to do is require some gems. And so I'm going to require Ruby gems. We're going to be grabbing from that. And then I'm going to require Nokogiri. This is a gem that allows us to parse a website without having to go through all of the regex and crazy stuff that we're going to have to do. Provides a ton of functionality without us having to know anything specific. And I've got my dog Susie pawing at me here, so I apologize. I've also included OpenURI because that's the Ruby library that's going to allow us to actually connect to websites. I'm going to define a static URL here for the site that we're using. That's because it's not going to change, at least for my purposes. You'll obviously want to define your own for whatever you're doing. And then next thing I'm going to do is actually define a method, which is for loading a page. And the reason for that is because we're going to be looping through all of these reports and trying to find a new page. And it's always going to be the same actions that we're taking. We're going to open up the page, grab some content, pass it off to the rest of our script. So that's why we're going to do this in a method. With that, first thing we're going to do is try to open up a URL. So you want to do a begin and rescue, because if you can't open the URL, you're going to get an error from the OpenURI library. So I'm going to begin. I'm going to sleep for a second because I want to be respectful and not hammer websites. So I'm going to wait for 1 second every time I'm trying to go to a new page. And so I'm going to set an instance variable of page is going to be equal to, and this is where Nokogiri comes in. I hope I'm pronouncing that right and I don't look like an idiot. We're going to open a page. And so here I'm using open from OpenURI to open this page that I'm passing in, and then I'm going to pass it into Nokogiri, which is going to provide me an HTML object. And so then I can use a whole bunch of methods on that. And so you can look at the documentation if you're curious about that. But also, because I'm going to be running this from the command line, I want to know what's going on. So I'm just going to put a nice puts in there so I can see what's happening. And so I know when I've opened a new page. And here, as I mentioned, I'm going to rescue. You know what? I'm just going to copy this from this code here, so you don't have to see what's going on. Painfully typed. Watch me painfully type. So that's it. I'm just going to do that right now. I'm just going to load the page, and we'll worry about getting to the next page after that. We'll come back to that. So next thing I want to do is I want to open a file where I'm actually going to write to. So I'm going to call this HackerOne reports, and I want this to be added to. The script isn't actually going to handle this. This is something you can do afterwards, because to append, we're going to be appending to the beginning. So you actually have to take everything ready to a new file and then work some magic. So I'm not going to do that. But if there's interest, leave a comment and we can always work through it together. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the last report. And so file read line dot match. And so here, I'll explain this in a second. I should have just copied this code for you. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually trying to get the report number from my last file reading. So the idea being here is I'm trying to open up this HackerOne reports file. And if I can, I want to read the line and I want to look for matching reports. And then I've got some syntax errors here. Like that, whatever it's giving me. We'll look at it in a second. Go ahead and copy this guy. So what I'm saying is grab the file that we just opened, read the first line, and then on that first line with regex, match something that is reports slash, I have to escape the slash, and then some digit, and any number of digits, I don't care because we never know how long these reports are going to get. And so once I have that match, grab that first element and give it to me as an integer. So that first match, because this is in brackets, that's going to match that first one, is going to group it, and so the first grouping is going to be that report number. Give that to me as an integer. If it can't, it gets to the end of the file and doesn't find any of that, then my last report is going to be 0, and that will happen if it's a brand new file. So when I save that, you'll see I don't have any errors there. And now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and actually load a page. And so here, I'm going to be taking a URL, and this is going to be hash activity. And so all of this is, if you're following along, is I'm saying, give me my first http hackerone.com/hacktivity. You could be using whatever you want if you're doing some other page. I also want to know my count, keep track of that, how many I've added. So I've got count is equal to 0 there. So next thing I want to do is I'm going to copy a bunch of code and walk you through it so that you don't have to watch me painfully walk through this. So let's go ahead and copy this and paste it, and I'll explain exactly what we're doing. So as I mentioned, when we went ahead and we got the instance variable page, because there's no Kogiri element, it's got a method called CSS, which will match a CSS element. And so I'm saying match all the A tags, all the A references. I want to have all of them. And so with Ruby, I can say .each, and it'll give me all of them as an iteration, so I can walk through each one of them. And so now I have this link variable. And so what I want to do is I want to set a report equal to the link href, where it matches reports slash some number. Remember from before, that's the URL that we're going to be looking at. If we go back to Hacktivity here and I scroll and I find this guy, if I hover over this, you'll see that it's HackerOne/report/some number. And so that's what we're looking for when we're doing this. And so if I can find that, I'm going to set it to report. And so Ruby has this nice one-line syntax where it's set the variable if I can actually match on the variable. So if I can find some report and it's there, give me that. So if I have a report, then I'm going to go into check whether or not the report's greater than the last report. This could be a one-liner, but I like this syntactically when I was writing it, so that's why I kept it this way. So if I have a report and the report's greater than the last report that I have in the file, we're going to write this to the file. That's what I talked about before. Obviously, if you have, your first file is report 1000, and then you find 1001. When you're reading that file, you want to read 1001 first. So that's where this script won't actually create a new file where 1001 is on top of it. So it's going to append to the end, so it's only a one-time script. If there's an interest in that, message me and I'll change it up. So as I mentioned, we're going to write now to the file. We're going to say, here's our URL, right? We have activity, we have hackerone.com, and then we're going to actually put the link in there. So it's going to be hacktivity slash whatever number we just found. And then we're going to actually take the link text. So whatever the description that's associated with the link, we're going to write that as well, and then add a new line. And we're going to increment the fact that we've now found a new report. if the report is less than the last report that we found, we know that that's it. We found all that we need to find. We don't need to keep going through all the rest of the pages. We can be respectful of HackerOne. We can stop our scraping. So we go ahead and close our file, and then we just exit. We just stop. We're good. So that's it. So I can go ahead and I can actually run this now. Let me do this. So I do Ruby scraper, and it should take a second, but you'll see it actually connect, and then it'll create a file. So you see we loaded activity, and because we don't loop, we just go through one page. If we ls here, you'll see we have HackerOne reports, and we should just see one file. Oh, we see two. There are actually two in there. That's great. So we just grabbed two new files. We stopped it. So we're halfway there. We're getting the URLs. Everything looks good. Now what we need to do is we need to start iterating through finding that next link and going to the next page. So I'm just going to remove HackerOne reports so it doesn't screw up what we're doing. And we're going to go back over here to our code. So what I wiped out was some code here in the load page, which looks for the next tag. So as I mentioned, if we go and we check out the CSS for this next link, we can inspect the element, and you'll see that the next link is an A class. It's got an href. This is the URL that we want. We want that equals page 2. But we just want to get the next button. We don't want to end up getting all of these guys as well. So what we'll do is we'll actually use this rel equals next with no Kogiri to go ahead and grab that. So I'm just going to paste in the code here and walk you through specifically what it does. So what we're doing is we're saying if we can find a page.css where there's an a rel equals next, which we just looked at, we want to set an instance variable next URL to be URL and then next item first ht or href. And so what this does is we get a list of next items that match this specific a rel equals next. And the first element in there, we want to grab the href out of. And the reason why we do that is because we know the structure of this page. We know that there's only one next URL, so that's why I can do it this way. If you're scraping another site and there's multiple nexts, this isn't going to work for you. You need to find some better code to accommodate the page that you're trying to scrape. So if I have that, then I'm going to set the next URL to be that. Otherwise, I'm going to set the next URL to be nil. I want it initialized, but I want it to be nothing. So I'm going to save that. Now what I need to do is for this link here, I need to have an @next URL. So while I have a next URL, I'm going to keep looking for new pages. And so down at the bottom, I also need to make sure that I'm going to load my next page. So next URL. That should be outside of my loop. Yeah. So what I'm doing here is while I have a next URL, just keep going ahead, grabbing a new page, finding all the links on it, find the new page, find the new page, find the new page. Because next URL is set up here at the top, anytime we load a new page, we're going to see if we have another URL, and then we'll come back into this next URL. So at the bottom, we'll load the next page. If we have another URL, we'll keep going, we'll keep going, we'll keep going. If memory serves, this actually errors out at the beginning or at the end. I didn't really care because it got everything, so I probably have something wrong with next URL and the nil settings in terms of the while, but to be honest, it grabbed all the reports for me and all was good. So now what we can do is we can actually just do the same thing, and we'll go Ruby scraper, and we'll give it a minute, and you'll see that URLs will start popping up. So you'll see that we've loaded one page, we've got activity. Now we've found page 2, we've loaded up activity, and you'll see that this will keep going page 3, page 4. So we're not going to wait for everything, but I can load up, and I can see if I go to HackerOne reports, because it's writing it in a buffer, in a temp file. So what I need to do is actually stop this. So I stopped it. And now, because I did that, if we look at HackerOne reports, you can see here are all the reports that it's grabbing. So it is going ahead, going through each page, grabbing all the publicly disclosed reports, writing them to a file, and that's our screen scraper. Just briefly, I'll walk you through again what we did. Remember, we added some gems here. The reason why we grabbed Nokogiri is because it makes it a whole lot easier. We don't have to write any regex. We can just use its library to find elements on a page. Highly recommend you use that. Next thing we did, open URI, because that's what's going to actually connect us to web pages. We set our default URL, added a method to actually load the page and find our next links, right? Then we went ahead and we took a look at our open file. Again, remember, if we run this again, it's not going to append to the end of the file. That's some functionality we'd have to add. Leave a comment if you're interested in that. We then went ahead and we just, while we had a next link, we just kept iterating through, took a look at all of those A links, right? All of those links on a page, and we iterated through each one of them, and we checked to see, does it have a digit associated with it, right? There's a lot of links on there, but we just want the report / some number. Grab that, write it to a file, and then continue on. And that's it. That's the script. Hopefully this helps you. If it does, leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know. And again, whenever you're walking through a website, be respectful. That's why I have the sleep one up at the top there. And hopefully the guys at HackerOne don't hate the fact that I post this. So again, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you for the next video tutorial.